Well, thank you for joining us again for number 9 in the series on A World of Hurt. It's been my privilege to be able to present these messages to you. We have a few more to go, so I hope you will stay with us until the very end. We've been trying to help understand the nature of hurt, the hurt that is in this world, the hurt that is always a part of our lives on one level or another. And we need to understand the principles, and we need to understand the encouragements that will help us to be able to live with the hurts. It's not whether we're going to live with hurts, it's how we do it. And it's how and what we can learn from the experiences that we have in this world. So I'm trying to break it down in some very logical parts for us so that we can see how these things all work together. One of the things I'm going to do today is shift gears a little bit here. I want to talk about some of the positive outcomes from leveraging the hurts in our lives. And eventually, and over the next 3 messages that I will do, I'm going to talk about the positive outcomes. What can be the result of the hurts that we have in our lives? And so we're going to talk about personal victory over hurts. We're going to talk about a new love vision that we gain in the midst of the hurts of this world. And then we're going to talk about disciple making in a world of hurt. And so those are the things we're going to be looking at in the next 3 lessons. I want to give you a little introduction today to the positive outcomes from leveraging the hurts. Remember, we're talking using the word leverage as the same way that Archimedes used the word. He said, if you give me a place to stand, and you give me a fulcrum, and you give me a lever long enough, I can move the world. And I believe the place that we're to stand is in grace and truth. The fulcrum is the hurt that is in our life. The lever is our faith. And it is God who moves that lever in order to move the hurts in our life and cause something good to come out of those hurts. So today, positive outcomes from leveraging the hurts. The lever makes moving the object possible. Without it, we merely strain against the heavy, immovable object. Such activity is actually insane. Pushing against a building to center it on its foundation is pointless. If the building is going to move, there needs to be some strategy and some mechanics. How were the pyramids built? How were the Moai of Easter Island built, transported and put in place? It was not by brute force. It was because of the use of mechanics. Hurts are heavy. That is why we call them burdens. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Each one should carry his own load. Galatians 6, verses 2 and verse 5. Burdens should not just sit. They are to be carried. They are to be moved. They are to be transported. It has been said that we should not waste a good problem. Or the classic line is, if the world gives you lemons, which are sour, then you make, of course, lemonade. Or I like the one about the mule who fell into the well. The owner of the mule decided that he couldn't get his mule out of the well, so he would just simply bury him in the well. So he began to shovel the dirt in, and as he did, the mule merely shook the dirt off his back, and eventually the well was filled in enough so that the mule simply walked out. That is leverage. Can something good come from something bad? Can light come from darkness? Can our mourning turn to rejoicing? Perhaps we need to learn to ask better questions when we are hurting instead of, why am I hurting? Or when will it be over? We might ask, what is God going to do for good with my hurt? How can God bring about something from hurt for His glory? The man that was born blind, as mentioned in John chapter 9, was an opportunity for the works of God to be displayed in his life. John 9, verse 3. This man suffered with blindness all of his life. Did anything good come of it? Well, the man got a whole chapter in the Bible and a life-changing experience of faith. But what if he had never been healed? Could he have had a positive outcome even then? Well, of course he could, because the most important outcomes from God's leveraging our hurts are not the physical relief that we receive or the emotional healing that we receive, but it is the perfecting of our character and our formation into the image of Christ. So, positive outcomes for leveraging the hurts in our life. Some people love challenges. They just like to prove that they can do something that seems to be quite difficult or maybe even impossible. The hurts of life are like challenges. Can something good come from this if I find the key to leveraging the hurt? Once I worked with my father-in-law during a summer, and my father-in-law at one point, he was in the produce business, and he sold, he had this truckload of mangoes that were coming in from Mexico, and because of some circumstances, they turned out to be soft. They had passed their peak. They were supposed to be there at a certain time in a certain condition into Miami, but they didn't make it, and again, the fruit was soft. It was the trucking company's fault. They didn't get them there in good shape, and I just couldn't see any positive outcomes from this. But Jimmy, my father-in-law, was excited, and he said that we would make more money off of that load than if the load had come in good. The truck line had to drastically reduce its transport fees, and we found some local markets that were willing to take the produce, since it was ripe, at a reduced price. But the net was higher than it would have been if we had sold the fruit at the optimal price and it had been good fruit. And then we had had to pay the full transport fees for the fruit. The hurt was leveraged into a positive. And so I learned a really important lesson as I watched how that all played out. Sometimes it seems like something is very, very bad, and it may prove not to be as bad as I thought it was if I can just learn how to leverage the hurts in this world. So what kind of attitudes do we need for this to happen? So I'm going to give you some, if you will, some leveraging attitudes today. So I think, about 6 of them. So you might want to take these down. The first one is what I call a wiggle room mentality. Now, I came up with that one, as far as I know, all on my own. I think of spelunking. I've never been a spelunker. You know what a spelunker is? That's someone who goes into caves and explores caves. So I think of spelunking through a cave and coming to a very narrow passage. The question is there any wiggle room through that passage? Now again, you're not going to catch me in one of those caves, and you're certainly not going to catch me wiggling through those places. But if a person is brave enough to do that, then they want to know, do they have enough wiggle room to get through that very narrow passage? If so, it is possible to get through it if you wiggle enough. Is there ever, or is there even one positive move that I can make with God's help that will improve my situation? That's what I call wiggle room. In other words, I may not be as stuck as I think I am in the hurt, because there may be one more move I can make. There's maybe one more thing I can do. There may be one more way for me to be able to make some progress in the midst of the suffering and the hurt that I am in. And so we never give up. We keep wiggling. We keep wiggling until we get through that narrow place and we come into a big cavern that is filled with beauty. And so wiggle room mentality, I believe, can help us in the midst of the hurts. The second thing I would offer to you is an advice mentality. Advice mentality. Now, you remember the show about becoming a millionaire? And you had some options there. So if you didn't know the answer to the question, you could poll the audience or you could phone a friend. Well, an advice mentality is like that. Many get stuck in their hurts simply because they do not ask for advice. Because all of us are limited in our knowledge and our understanding of things. And so many people make assumptions that there is nothing that they can do to change things in their life. But maybe you just need to be more objective. You need a fresh set of eyes to give you a different perspective. You know, we need to be people who are willing to seek advice. Now, I know that as a man, that I don't like to stop and ask for directions. But if I'm stuck and I'm lost, probably the best thing for me to do is ask somebody who knows a little bit more about where I'm going than I do. So an advice mentality is very important when it comes to hurts. You know, I may not know what to do with the hurt that I'm in, but hopefully there's someone out there who can give me some strength and direction and advice that will help me to get out of the forest of hurt that I am in, or at least help me to have a perspective about it so that I understand the hurt better. So I need an advice mentality. The third thing I need is what I call a chessboard master mentality. A chessboard master mentality. The hurting person sometimes thinks that they are all out of moves, that there's nothing left to do. It's like a chessboard, that they're stuck. They say, if I move here, then this is going to happen. I move there, this is going to happen. And they are paralyzed because they think that every move is going to be their last move. They think that there's nothing left to do. But rarely is there nothing left. Now, in chess, occasionally you will get to checkmate, but there's a lot of moves on the board before you ever get to checkmate, at least most of the time, unless you're a really bad player. The chess master, what does he do? He studies the board. He studies the board. We sometimes fail to get a positive outcome because we simply do not study the board. We need to stand back. We need to wait. We need to look. We need to observe. We need to take some time to assess what is going on. You know, I have found people who are, say, for instance, in a bad financial situation. One of the things I've often told people to do in that case is you need to assess what you have. You need to sit down and you need to put your financial situation on paper where you can look at it. You need to list all of your assets. You need to list all of your liabilities. You need to list all of the options that you have in order to be able to tackle your problems. You need to consider everything. Study the board. Study it. Because when you do that, you can slow down enough and see things that at first glance you didn't see. So study the board. Have a chessboard master mentality. The fourth thing I would encourage us to do if we're going to have positive outcomes from leveraging our hurts is to have an acceptance mentality. Acceptance mentality. There are simply some things, some hurts, that we just can't change. At least maybe not in the moment, or maybe not ever. And we need to accept the things that we cannot change. That's part of that serenity prayer you might recognize. But there are some hurts that we just simply cannot change. But when we don't, and we fight against the hurts, when we don't accept them, and we fight against the hurts, we often end up hurting ourselves even more because now we're fighting against something that we can't change. Fighting the same bloody battle over and over again, and it doesn't lead to a better outcome. Why do I continue to fight that battle over and over again in the same way? I need to accept that it is something that I can't change. Now remember last time we talked about faith being one of the tools that we use in order to leverage the outcome. And so there's always things that God can do that I can't do, but I need to learn how to accept the things that I cannot change. We need to learn to live with the hurt and embrace the hurt and help and count on God for what he can do to help us through it. Acceptance is really something that can bring you a lot of peace if you can just grab a hold of that idea. We think sometimes if I just keep on fighting, I keep on fighting, that everything's going to be better. Well, again, if you've got wiggle room, keep on wiggling. But if you're fighting and in the fight you're just getting hurt more and more, that you're getting more and more bloody in the fight, then you might need to just stop and accept the fact that some things cannot be changed. And then the fifth thing that I would give you is to develop an advocacy mentality. An advocacy mentality. Certain kinds of hurts can lead us to become advocates for others who are hurting. Now, this may seem strange, but leveraging the hurts in your own life may be as simple as you're becoming an advocate for the hurts in somebody else's life. When we know how someone else feels because of the same thing that's happening to me or you, then you can speak up and speak out for them. You can say, I'm going to speak for those people who don't have a voice. And you may be able to speak for them because you have the same kind of hurt in your life and because you've overcome it in some ways in your own life. You've had a more positive outcome in your own life, and you can speak up for those who are hurting, and you become an advocate for them. Often when this happens, we begin to focus less on our hurts as we focus more on the hurts of others. It is more blessed to give than it is to receive. So when I put myself in the shoes of other people and I advocate for them, I try to make the way easier for them. Ironically, what happens is that my load seems much lighter. When I carry someone else's burden, sometimes my burden doesn't seem so big. And so I would encourage you to develop an advocacy mentality. And then finally, I would encourage you to develop a squeezing mentality. A squeezing mentality. And what do I mean by that? You need to learn to squeeze all the good you can out of a bad situation so that it becomes positive. Back to that lemon illustration, when the world gives you lemons, what do? You make lemonade? Yeah, but while you're squeezing that lemon, make sure you squeeze all you can get out of it, because the more juice you get out of that lemon, the more lemonade you're going to get. And so squeeze that lemon. Squeeze out all of what you can learn from that bad situation. Get all the learning you can get from that. Because even if it's a hurt that has come into your life because of a mistake you made, learn everything you can in that situation so that you get the most good out of that hurt. Squeeze out the most hope that you can squeeze out of that situation. You may see a little hope at first, but keep squeezing. The more you squeeze, the more hope comes out, and the more you can see how the outcome can be positive. Also, squeeze all the empathy that you can out of that. And what I mean is squeeze out all of the understanding of how other people are suffering just like you are. And squeeze out empathy so that you become more empathetic and more sympathetic in this world. And you will grow and become a better person because of that. And then squeeze out of that situation all the action that you can squeeze out of it. See the possibilities. Make the moves. Put your faith into action. Be able to do something, whatever it is. Squeeze every action out of it that you can squeeze when you're in the midst of the hurt. So these are 6 mentalities that I would offer up to you if you're going to leverage positive outcomes from the hurts in your life. The wiggle room mentality, the advice mentality, the chessboard master mentality, the acceptance mentality, the advocacy mentality, and the squeezing mentality. All of those can help us find the positive outcomes in the midst of the hurts of this world. Yes, we live in a world of hurt, but those hurts can be turned into positives if we follow some of these principles and some of these mechanics of how to leverage the hurts in our lives. Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope you will come back next week. We're going to get into the 3 outcomes of leveraging hurts for good. And I look forward to those 3, and then we'll have one more at the very end, a conclusion to the whole matter at the very end. And we have a lot more material to cover here, so I hope you'll stay with us. Again, God bless, and I pray that God will help you through the hurts that you are experiencing in your life right now. Take care. See you next week.